Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at Mistsong Banquet Season 2. Now, first of all, I'm going to be going over the basics for anyone that is completely new to this instance, and then we're going to be going over two different strategies, one of which I worked on with the help of people over from our Discord that we have, where we have a little Archeage group in there. If you want to look for people to connect up with or help me make videos, you can hop on over there. The link for that will be below. But yeah, thank you to Ash for joining me for a lot of those and helping me grow through it, because we had a lot of this and a lot of that. And yeah, it was fun. Other than that, I literally just did a pug and got given some instructions from BattlePie, who helped me out to do a different strategy, which actually worked really smoothly. I'll be showing that off in this video as well, and you guys can decide which one you want to go with, maybe even mix them both together. I think it might be a good idea to mix it together in certain places. But yeah, one last thing before we do get into it, I do stream on Twitch Thursday through to Monday. You can kind of find me doing Archeage Friday and Saturdays. I've been doing a lot of New World recently though, but that's probably going to end a couple of days after this video goes out anyway, so yeah. Let's just get right into it, and we'll start with the basics. The first thing you're going to notice when you first come into Mistsong Banquet is there are 3 lanes, and one of you has to take a lane each. In these lanes there are rows of cannons that can be built, but to build these you're going to need crystals that you get at the start of each round. There will be 3 that spawn as soon as round starts, and you want to collect these as fast as possible because they are on a timer and they will despawn if you don't pick them up quick enough. Other than this, there are a couple of ways that you can pick up crystals. There are pillars that are scattered around the arena as well, and every now and then you will get a ping on your minimap and it will say that supplies have been delivered. Now, good etiquette here is to usually just take the 2 pillars that are closest to your lane, but one thing to be concerned about is the other thing that you can pick up from the pillars is a flame scale. Now, the flame scale will increase the amount of damage that you do in lane, and this is pretty important to keep hold of, because a very annoying thing with this is it can run out after 4 or so minutes, so you need to keep collecting the buff to keep that buff up, and it does stack over time as well, so you do want to be collecting these. So what you might need to do is, if you're not getting a flame scale near your lane, communicate with your other lanes, let them know that you really need a scale, and you can fly on over and take one of theirs if need be. Now, the different type of cannons that you can set up in these lanes are, first of all, either a basic or a magic cannon. The basic cannon goes into a shock or a rapid cannon at first, and the magic goes into a flame or a frost cannon first. Once these are actually upgraded, you don't have to spend any more crystals to swap them out freely. So if you want a rapid cannon instead of a flame, you can just swap that out once you've built it up to a flame, or vice versa. Now, to upgrade these cannons, there's a little orb on the side that you just want to keep clicking on. It is very easy to accidentally change the type of cannon that you're using as well. Don't worry if you make that mistake, you can always change it back, but you do want to just keep clicking on the orb or press F on it, either or works. And it takes 10 per upgrade until you reach the last 2 stages, where it costs 30 crystals each for both of those upgrades at the end, so a total of 60 for the last 2 upgrades. Once these turrets are actually fully upgraded, you then have 3 more options with your turrets. If you click on the orb instead of the actual turret, you can change them to either a blazing turret, a thunder turret, or a laser cannon. And these all do various things, and some of these you might not even have to use for one of the strategies that I'll be going over. But just to go over it briefly, the blazing cannon is a single target damage. It also slows the mob that it's attacking by quite a lot, so you can bring some mobs to a halt with it. And the laser is just single target magic damage, and the thunder cannon, I believe, does a ton of range damage. So they're what the 3 turrets do, and that's about all you really need to know going into this. So let's just move on over to strategy number 1, and we'll talk about that. Okay, so for strategy number 1, when you first start off and you've hit the gong to signal that you're ready, the crystals will spawn. You're going to grab all 3 crystals, head right to the middle, you're going to first make a magic cannon, which I believe is on G, and then you're going to change this cannon to a flame cannon. Once that's done, you can go forward a little bit closer to the gate where the mobs are going to come through, and just press F and throw down a ranged cannon there as well. And then you just want to chill for this round. You can go ahead and hit the mobs. I do recommend, if you're going to actually attack most of the mobs in here, just do it using your melee attack. The reason you do this is they have a chance of dropping 5 crystals. Now this isn't enough to upgrade anything, but it does add up over time, and if multiple mobs drop these crystals at once, for some reason, if you pick one of them up, all of them disappear. So you kind of want to be on top of the mobs as they die to collect those extra crystals, because if you get them one at a time, you can actually stack them up. Alright, so once that round's over, you know, maybe you've been collecting stuff from your pillars. If not, just go back, collect your crystals for the next round, and we're just going to put some more ranged turrets down. So just press F everywhere, get some more down in front of the gate, and then just chill for another round. Once you're on to the next round, what I would recommend doing is starting to change some of the automatic cannons over to shock cannons. Now, sometimes I do this a little early on in the run, or sometimes I do it later, but essentially what you want to be doing for these first 8 rounds is making sure every cannon here is a shock cannon, except the middle one. The middle one will be a fire one. And once you've gotten every cannon to be shock, you then want to come back to the flame one. You want to max this out, and it should be maxed out by the time round 8 rolls around. So that is all you've really got to do for the first 8 rounds. So I can kind of skip forward through this a little bit. I'll speed up the footage a bit so you can still see what I'm doing, and then we'll take a look at round 9, because that's where it starts to get a little different. So once round 9 actually comes around, you want to make sure you swap over all of your shock turrets to be frost turrets, and then you want the middle cannon to become a blazing cannon. Now, to do this again, you want to click on the orb, and I believe it's H as the default key, and this cannon will slow down one of the 2 big mobs that are going to come through this round. What you want to do this round is you want to make sure you are ice bolting the back one over and over again, hitting them with the frost bolt, the ice bolt, whatever it's called. I'll be honest, I've forgotten the name. I think it's ice arrow, but I'm too used to WoW for some reason. I don't know why. I've been playing Archeage for a long time, and I've not played WoW in a while, but Frostbolt is still on my mind. But yeah, just keep hitting it with the Ice Bolt, and just keep on going. Now, there could be a little bit of RNG here. Your Ice Bolt might miss, so the big guy might get a little further forward. That's okay, don't worry about it. Just keep hitting with the Ice Bolt, and eventually the other one will die to the blazing cannon, and it'll focus the other mob instead, and you should be fine for this round. Now, once round 10 actually comes around, this is where the mobs are only going to come down one lane, just for this round specifically. So it will tell you right at the start of this round which lane it's going to come down. It'll say red, green, or blue. You want to make sure you are there at that lane as the mobs are coming down to actually help out your teammate, or, you know, your teammates will come to you and help you out if it's your lane. For this lane, you want to make sure you swap everything over to Shock and Thunder. And at this point, you'll notice I'm putting a bunch of crystals into another cannon here, right next to the middle one. And you could potentially have a second Thunder cannon at this point, right there. So, if you've got extra crystals left over, that is the next one you upgrade. And then make sure you get to the lane that they're all coming down, and just help out, keep meleeing, and then come back to lane for round 11. For round 11, you don't have to touch anything. Just make sure it's all Shock and Thunder. You'll either have the 2 Thunders, or maybe you'll just have the 1 Thunder and one is almost about to be Thunder. And just chill for that round. You should be okay. Now, round 12 is where it can get a little bit complicated. It's not too bad on round 12, but there are 2 different types of mobs that can end up coming down during this round. At this point, you probably do have 2 Thunder cannons. So, with this lane, there's either going to be a Yakuza that comes down, or there'll be a big ghosty boy. So, if it's the ghosty boy, you want to keep the Thunder cannons there and you're fine. if it's the Yakuza, I don't know what they're called. They're not called the Yakuza, but if it's the Yakuza, whatever they're called, switch it over to a blazing, and you want to have both of these be blazing. Now what I do beforehand is I actually swap the front cannon to a blazing, and I'll stand there and wait and see what mob comes through. And if it is the ghost, I'll just swap it back. If it's the Yakuza, I'll just come to the middle cannon and swap that over to a blazing as well. And that round should be fine. Just keep meleeing them down, collect those crystals. Once that round is over, you want to swap the blazing cannons back to thunder if you had to swap. But if it's thunder and shock still, just leave it for the next 2 rounds. You're actually fine up until round 15. The other cannon that you want to be upgrading during this time is the one diagonal from the middle cannon towards the statue. So you'll notice I'm putting it all into there next. I like to just do it in diagonally. I don't know why, that's just what I do for the strategy. I just decided it looked nice doing it that way, and it worked out. But yeah, just chill for these next few rounds, keep meleeing them down, and then round 15 will come around. Now, round 15 is the part where this strategy gets a little dicey, because round 15, there is potential for there to be 2 different types of mobs again. There's either going to be a brass lantern or a talisman lantern. Now, the talisman lantern, you actually don't need to change anything in lane. You just have your shock and thunders, and you don't even need to actually attack the mobs in that lane. It takes care of itself. But if brass show up, you want to swap everything over to blazing and frost as fast as you can. What I tend to do is I will go to the very front towards the gate, and I'll swap the first couple over to frost, I'll swap one over to blazing, and then I'll wait at the other one and see what comes through. If talismans show up, I swap them back. If it's brass, then I'll just start running down the lane and making sure I swap everything else over to frost and blazing. So again, if it's brass, frost and blazing. If it's talisman, just thunder and shock, and you can leave the lane. You can actually go help another lane. That's dealing with brass. This is actually how we used to cleanly get through this. We'd communicate that we've got brass in the lane, and then we'd all go over there and help. Now, it can vary. You can have 2 brass, or you can just have 1 brass. But if it's talisman, they're usually the easier ones to deal with. Now, if you've made it cleanly through that round, which hopefully you did, we get on to round 16, which is all frost and blazing. So at this point, you want to swap everything over to frost and blazing. And these are going to be the same big guys that you had on round 9. So what you want to do is keep frost bolting them over and over again, or ice arrowing them over and over again. And eventually they'll come to a standstill if there's enough of them dead, and you can just melee them down from there. But try and keep them slowed, make sure they don't get near the center, and you should be fine on this round. And you should hopefully be getting through this pretty cleanly. Once round 17 comes around, you want to swap everything over to shock and thunder again, and you should be fine for that one. Just go ahead and keep meleeing them down, do what you've been doing. This should be fine up until round 18, which is where there's again a chance at there either being the Yakuzas or the Ghosty Boys again. So if it's the Ghosts, thunder. If it's the Yakuzas, swap them over to blazing. So blazing if it's Yakuza, and thunder if it's a Ghosty Boy. Alright, and now we're at round 19. So when you hit round 19, you're going to have the same big boys again that were a bit of a pain to deal with. They're going to be a little stronger. There's a few more of them. So you want to swap everything over to blazing and frost once more. And you just want to, again, keep hitting them with the ice arrow. And if they come to a standstill, you can start to melee them down a bit as well. Try and get them low as they come towards the middle. Again, I like to try and focus the ones that are being focused by the blazing cannon, so the blazing can swap target. Or just, you know, just melee them down to the point where they're probably going to die anyway, and you don't actually need to deal any more damage to them. And that round should go fine. And then we finally come around to round 20, where it's going to get a little crazy. Now, this is kind of where the overall strat that I was going for here. Sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, which is why I'm going to bring up the second strategy here, which might help you out a little more with this. So what I like to do when it comes to this round is I swap everything over to flame cannons. I'll have a laser cannon in the middle. I'll have 2 blazings and 3 lasers. Maybe even a third blazing if I've got enough resources at that point. And then the rest are all just flame, because these guys cannot be slowed and they cannot be stunned, and then you just want to melee them down because you're not slowing them otherwise. They can't be frozen. But yeah, unfortunately, in the run you're seeing here, some of them get through. You know, we got very close, but it didn't quite work out. So what I'd actually recommend over the flame cannons is probably rapid cannons. The rapid cannons seem to do a better job at it. I'm going to be going over the other strategy that I was shown during this run, and then from there you can decide which one you actually want to take. Okay, now that we're done with strategy number 1, we're going to take a look at strategy number 2, and I'm going to walk you through this. I was given this one on the spot, so this footage here is of me doing it for the first time. So it doesn't go as smoothly as it could go, but we do actually get all the way through to round 20 on this one, and it works out in the end. So I was given this by Battle Pie. I don't believe they originally came up with it either. It was just handed off to me, so I don't know who came up with the strategy, but it also works fairly well. I'd recommend using the rapid cannons for round 20 that this strategy uses in the first strategy, if you do want to mix and match a little bit. I feel like the first strategy has some waves that go a bit smoother than this one, but it may just be execution on my part here because I was a little slow. But yeah, this strategy is pretty easy. So for the first wave, we're just going to put an auto cannon in the middle and then to either side of the door, and then just melee them down to make sure you're getting those crystals that may or may not drop, and then make sure you're picking up your pillars as well. Wave 2, we're going to swap the middle to a shock, and then we're going to add 2 extra auto cannons just in front of that. Again, just melee them down. Once we get to wave 3, that's where we're going to add 2 extra auto cannons at the back. We're going to swap the shock cannon in the middle to a flame, and then we're actually going to swap the one to the left to a shock as well. Then once we're on to wave 4, this is where we're going to go ahead and change all of the ones close to the gate to shock shells, and we'll make sure they're all shock shells. And at this point you can start upgrading the left shock shell cannon right here, and we're just going to keep pouring a bunch into this until it's maxed out. And then we're going to keep doing this through wave 5 and 6. So 5 and 6, not much is going to change. You're just going to keep putting stuff into that shock shell. And then once we reach wave 7, we want to come to the back auto turrets here, and I'm going to also swap these to shock for this round. And again, just keep meleeing them down, do your usual thing. And then we get to wave 8. Now, wave 8, there are 2 cannons we want to swap here. We want to swap this front one near the gate to an ice, and then we want to swap this back one to an ice as well. And again, keep pouring all of your crystals into the shock. So hopefully this should be maxed out by this point. Then we come to wave 9. Now, this wave is the one where the 2 big guys come through. So all we're really going to be doing here is we're going to be swapping over the maxed out shock to a blazing. And then we're going to keep pouring everything else into the flame. So we're going to try and max out the flame after this. And then when they come down the lane, you just want to be ice arrowing the back one over and over. So eventually they both come to a halt, and you can easily get through that round. So when we get to round 10, they are all going to come down one lane, so make sure you pay attention for that. The only things we're going to be changing on lane during this is we're going to come to the back row where we've not added any cannons, put 2 auto cannons down, and we're just going to keep maxing out that flame. Then, as soon as the waves start coming, get on over to the lane that is being affected by it. Then once we reach wave 11, you probably have your flame maxed out by this point, so you want to start maxing out this shock shell that's a little further back. So just go ahead, keep maxing that out, and you'll be all good. Once wave 12 comes around, this is where you're either going to get the Yakuzas or the Ghosty Boys, so In this case, what I was told was if it's the Mist Fiends, you want to be changing the middle cannon over to a shock. You also want to change these back cannons to shock shells as well, and you're all good. I feel like I prefer the Thunder Cannon in the middle, though I've not really tested it. I'm trying to just go by the book with this new strategy because I've not completely tested it. So, yeah, just have a shock shell in the middle, and that should work out for you. Alright, and then we come around to wave 13. Now, for wave 13, we want to swap that middle cannon back to a flame, and then we just want to keep upgrading that third shock shell that I was showing off, and hopefully we will max that out, or get it close to maxed out by this point. And you can kind of just chill for this round again, keep meleeing them down. Wave 14, we actually get Mist Fiends again, so for that you want to swap the middle one back to a shock. Again, keep upgrading that shock shell, and hopefully that is maxed out. Once that is maxed out, you want to come on over to the shock shell next to your blazing cannon and start upgrading that one next. Okay, and then we come to wave 15. And for this one, you want to just swap over this shock shell that's upgraded to a blazing. You want to swap the shock in the middle back to a flame. And ideally, the other shock shell you've been upgrading would be a thunder by now. But again, this was my first time doing this strategy, so I was a little behind because I was just trying to figure it out as I go. It doesn't recommend changing the shock shells over to ice in the case of brass, but I feel like that would be a better option to do. I was just going by the book, and it worked out okay, but I probably would recommend changing it over to frost in the case of brass. In the case of talisman, you can probably just leave it because talisman lanterns are just easier to deal with in general. But yeah, just get in there, keep meleeing them down, try and get them low. If you can take out the targets that the blazing cannons are on, that's probably a good idea because then they'll swap target. I make the mistake here because I'm just like, my brain is frazzled. But yeah, as you can see, I let a few through, but I don't do too terribly. It could be a lot worse. But yeah, it's up to you which strategy you employ for this wave. Okay, and then we come to wave 16. Now this is going to be some big boys again. So this is a case of you just need to keep ice arrowing them down. The blazing cannon should help you out a ton here. Ideally, if you have the thunder cannon already, you'd start upgrading one of the two shock shells at the back close to the statue, so we can eventually turn that into a thunder. But for now, in my case, I'm all good, and I make it through that round pretty cleanly. So yeah, don't worry too much about that. And then we come to wave 17. And at this point, I actually first get my thunder. It does also recommend upgrading this front one here. So, I mean, you can either do one of the front ones here or one of the back ones. It's a little weird in what it recommends you to upgrade here, but I'd say just do the front one or the back one, whichever one's closer to you at the time. Once that wave is done, we're on to wave 18, and this again is either the Archeages or the Mist Fiends. If it's the Mist Fiends, you change the middle one to a shock cannon. And again, we're just going to keep pouring all of our crystals into the one we've been upgrading, so either one at the back or one of the ones near the front, whichever one you decided on. So in my case here, I've got the Archeages, so I just leave my flame cannon, and we just go ahead and we want to just keep meleeing them all down. Alright, and then we reach wave 19. Again, you're not really going to be changing anything up until wave 20, so just keep upgrading. And hopefully you could max it out by the end, but if not, that's okay. This wave again is the big boys, so I do like to try and throw some ice bolts out here, try and slow them down as much as I can. This wave can be rather tough. If you do get to the point where you can melee some of the ones down that are being hit by the blazing cannons, I'd recommend it so it swaps targets again. Hopefully make it a lot easier for you. But I try and vary what I'm doing here. One of them does just about get through. But again, I probably could have been doing this a lot smoother. And finally, we come to the final round, round 20. So for this one, you don't need to swap the Blazing, the Thunder. The only ones you need to be swapping are all of the other cannons. So the Blazing, the Thunder, the Flame. All the middle cannons for the most part will stay the same. The ice cannons you're going to be swapping over to Rapids. So swap these two front ones over to Rapids. And you can try and upgrade it all the way. And then you want to swap these back ones to Rapids as well. If you've fully upgraded one by this point, then feel free to change one to a Thunder or a Laser. Like either or could work here, and then just get stuck in and start mailing these guys down, because they cannot be slowed by the Frost, and they can't be stunned either, so just do as much damage as possible, preferably with the ones that the Blazing Cannons are targeting, so they swap targets. And this goes pretty well. The Rapid Cannons definitely work better than the Flame Cannons for this. As you can see, I actually just get caught a little bit off, and we let a few through here, but I think if I would have been putting everything into that front cannon, we probably wouldn't have had that problem. We just about squeezed the win out. So yeah, for my first time trying that strategy, it worked pretty well. So I'd recommend giving this one a go as well. Mix and match in places. If you prefer some of the first strategy, you can use some of that and maybe swap to the second strategy at some point. It's really up to you what you want to do here, but I did want to give you guys the option. Alright, now we are completely done with that. Let's go take a look at the rewards. So here's a list of all the rewards that you can possibly get from doing this, but the only one you really need to worry about is the last one, because that's the one you'll be getting. So the big one is you're guaranteed 2 Sunglow Lunar Gems, which are worth like 160 gold on my server at least, so you can sell those, make a nice little profit. You do that twice a day. You're gonna make yourself like 300 gold, something like that maybe. You'll make a good amount. And that is it for the video, so thank you for watching, everyone. Sorry this came out a little late. I did get a little distracted with New World, you know. That might have happened, and I'm probably going to be putting out a lot of videos on that, so do make sure to check those out as well when they do come out. And yeah, let me know what you thought of the strategies. Maybe you got a different one you want to put in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. I'm told subscribing helps the channel, but really it just, you know, it just makes me feel good to see a number go up. But yeah, that is it. Again, I do stream on Twitch. There's the Discord as well. And again, all the YouTube stuff. And I'll see you all in the next video.